After 60 years of living, most people have developed a sophisticated understanding of what investing means. They know about stocks and bonds. They know about real estate and retirement accounts. They have watched markets go up and down and have developed over decades a relationship with financial risk that reflects their own experience of what loss actually feels like at different stages of life. And yet, despite all of that accumulated knowledge and experience, the majority of people I have worked with who are over 60 are missing the three investments that matter most at this specific moment of their financial lives. Not because those investments are secret or difficult, but because they are not the investments that the financial industry spends the most time discussing. My name is Richard Harlow. I want to be honest with you about what I mean when I use the word investment in this conversation, because I am using it in a broader sense than the purely financial one. The investments I want to discuss are not limited to products you buy through a brokerage account, though some of them involve that. They are investments in the fullest sense of the word, deliberate allocations of resources, time, and attention toward things that generate returns, both financial and otherwise, over the years ahead. And the reason they matter more after 60 than at any other point in adult life is specific and arithmetical. After 60, the time available to recover from decisions that do not serve you shrinks in ways that are real and concrete, while simultaneously, the decisions themselves become higher stakes because the financial life you are building now is the financial life you will be living for the next 2 or 3 decades. The first investment that every person over 60 should be making, and that most are not making with sufficient deliberateness, is the investment in income-producing assets rather than growth-only assets. This distinction sounds technical, but its implications are profound and deeply personal. During the accumulation years, the primary goal of investing is to grow capital. You buy assets that increase in value over time, and you measure your success by watching the balance in your account rise. This is a perfectly sensible strategy during a period of life when you have income from labor, when you do not need your investments to generate cash, and when time is sufficiently long that volatility is manageable and even useful. But after 60, particularly for people who are approaching or have already entered retirement, the accumulation mindset can become the wrong mindset, or at minimum, an incomplete one. Because what you need from your financial life begins to change in a way that growth-only investments do not fully address. What you need after 60 is not just a pile of money that is getting larger. You need a structure that generates income, specific, predictable, recurring income that arrives in your life whether the market is up or down, whether you are healthy or managing a health challenge, whether you are engaged with your finances that day or not. Dividend-paying stocks from companies with long histories of consistent and growing distributions. Bond allocations appropriate to your specific time horizon and risk tolerance. Real estate positions where the rental income exceeds the carrying costs by a meaningful margin. These income streams do not build themselves. They require intentional construction during the years when the capital and the clarity to build them both exist simultaneously. And the difference between having that income structure in place at 70 and not having it is not a marginal difference. It is a structural one, a difference in how every financial decision of the following decades is made, in whether those decisions come from a position of security or a position of anxiety, in whether you are choosing or simply reacting to whatever circumstances present themselves. The reason most people over 60 underinvest in income-producing structures is that the accumulation habit is deeply ingrained. For decades, the measure of financial success has been the growing balance, the number that goes up over time. Income-producing investing shifts that measure entirely. It asks you to value a monthly dividend check, or a quarterly distribution, or a rental deposit not for what it adds to a balance sheet, but for what it means in the practical day-to-day reality of financial life. That shift in how you measure progress is not trivial. It requires actively choosing a different metric. But the people I have watched who make that shift early, who begin orienting their portfolio toward income generation before they urgently need it, are the people who arrive at 75 with something that money alone cannot easily buy: A financial life that runs on its own, that generates its output consistently, that requires maintenance but not reinvention. The second investment is one that the financial planning world almost never discusses in financial terms, and yet which has more influence on the financial outcomes of people over 60 than almost anything in the first category. It is the investment in health. I want to be precise about what I mean because I am not making a general wellness argument. I am making a financial argument, one with specific numbers behind it and specific implications for how you allocate your attention and your resources. The financial cost of poor health in the decades after 60 is staggering in ways that most people fundamentally underestimate when they are doing their financial planning. It is not only the direct medical costs, though those are real and significant. It is the opportunity costs, the activities foregone, the travel not taken, the engagement with family and work and purpose that becomes constrained when physical capacity is diminished. It is the care costs, the professional assistance required when independence is reduced, the structural changes to living arrangements that become necessary, the paid support that takes the place of capabilities that once existed. And it is the timeline cost, the compression of the years in which financial resources can be enjoyed into a shorter and more limited window than would have existed with better health. Every dollar invested in maintaining physical and cognitive health after 60, in movement, in medical oversight, in nutrition, in sleep, in cognitive engagement, in the social connections that research consistently shows to be among the strongest predictors of healthy aging, is a dollar that extends the period over which every other financial resource can be meaningfully used. This is not a metaphor. It is arithmetic. The person who arrives at 75 with their health substantially intact has a different financial life than the person who arrives at 75 with their health significantly compromised. Not because their account balances are different, but because what those balances can produce for them is different. Health is the multiplier on every other financial resource, and after 60, investing in it with the same seriousness that you invest in anything else financial is not self-indulgence. It is prudent capital allocation. The third investment is the one that, in my experience, produces the highest return per dollar invested, and that almost nobody makes deliberately enough. It is the investment in your own financial understanding, not the accumulation of more information about financial products, but the deepening of your comprehension of how your specific financial system actually works, how its components interact, and what its real vulnerabilities and real strengths are. After 60, your financial situation is more complex and more consequential than it has ever been. You are managing a system that includes multiple income streams, multiple asset types, tax implications that interact with each other in non-obvious ways, healthcare cost trajectories that are difficult to predict with precision, estate considerations that affect people you love, and a timeline that is real and finite in ways that the timelines of your 30s and 40s never were. Managing this system well requires a quality of understanding that cannot come from delegating entirely to professionals, however good those professionals are. It requires that you understand what you own, why you own it, what it costs you, what it produces, and what would happen to the whole if any of its components were removed or changed. The people I have watched manage the final decades of their financial lives with the most clarity and the most peace are not the people who had the most money. They are the people who knew their own financial system with the most precision, who could answer without hesitation questions about every significant component of their situation, who understood not just what their portfolio held, but why it held those things, what each position was supposed to accomplish, and what the plan was if circumstances changed in the ways that circumstances often do change after 60. That quality of understanding does not come from reading general articles about financial planning. It comes from sitting with your own specific situation, with the actual documents and accounts and numbers, and asking hard questions about each piece until you understand not just what it is, but how it fits. What I want you to take from today is not the feeling of having learned something new. I want you to take the recognition of something you may have known but not yet acted on. The investment in income-producing assets, the investment in your health, and the investment in your own financial understanding are available to you right now. Not after you feel more prepared, not after the right moment presents itself, but right now, with the resources and the time that you currently have. Each of them is actionable today. Each of them produces returns that compound over years. And each of them, begun now rather than later, will produce an outcome a decade from now that is meaningfully different from the outcome you will have if you continue doing only what you have been doing. The question I want you to sit with, not answer immediately, just sit with honestly, is this. Of these three investments, which one have you been treating as optional rather than essential? Because the one that feels most optional to you right now is almost certainly the one that deserves your attention first.